Okay, now we're getting into it. Name the arc made by the given angle. So here's the angle. Here's where the angle intercepts the circle. So that would be arc, uppercase letters, arc AB. I'm just going to put an arrow, arc AB. Okay, so for this one right here, angle YXQ. So this angle right here, sorry, I think I said that backwards. YQX intercepts the circle right here. So that would be at arc. Since it started with Y, I'm going to start with uppercase Y, arc YX. Okay. Now it says, find the measure of the arc or the central angle. Remember that the same measure, one is in degrees, and one is in radians. But they're equivalent measurements. Find the measure of the arc or central angle. Assume that the lines, which appear to be diameters, so this right here is the diameter, this right here is the diameter. The reason that's important, if that's the diameter, then we know this is a central angle. Because from the diameter, this would be a radius and this would be a radius. And then it extends to right there. So if we're finding the arc measure, we know that the arc measure, if we could write it in degrees, would be 55 degrees, but we have to convert it to radians. So this is how you do it. You take your degrees, you multiply it by pi divided by 180 degrees. Now, this is where you can just type it in the calculator. So what I want you to do on your paper is write pi and go ahead and put a fraction. And then I did not grab my calculator to do it more easily. So I'm going to, in your calculator, you're just going to do 55. You're going to hit the fraction button, and then you're going to type 180, and you're going to type enter. I'm going to have to do it manually. They both have a 5 in common. I think that's 36. So what you should see is 11 pi. On your calculator, you're going to see 1136. But remember, this pi up here, you need to write right there in the fraction. So 11 pi 36 is, this is in radians, this is the measure of the arc. Okay. So on this one, if they're saying the arc length is 80 degrees, which is ridiculous, you're not going to say that it's 80 degrees, but because they put it in degrees, we know that angle right there. So you could say the measure of angle question mark is 80 degrees, just like that. Now, normally, you really wouldn't write it like this. Normally, this would have a letter, this would have a letter right there, this would have a letter, this would have a letter. So normally you would say the measure of angle APB is 80 degrees. But because this did not have any letters and all they gave us for the angle was a question mark, I'm okay if you write it like that. All right. So the instructions say find the measure of the arc or the central angle. So now this gets a little bit trickier because now we have to use math. Remember, a circle, the measure of a circle in degrees is 360 degrees. Well, they gave us this measure. They gave us this measure. So the part we have to find, well then that's just 360 degrees. Subtract 133 degrees. subtract 154 degrees, and that will give you a measure. So the measure of arc TU is, I'm pausing because you should type that in and then write it yourself. Okay, so hopefully you did. Hopefully you typed 360, subtract 133, subtract 154. All of those are in degrees. Oh, this is tricky. But once we get it in degrees, we have to convert it to radians because we don't have arcs in radians. So what I got is 73 degrees. So I'm now going to take 73 degrees and I'm going to multiply it by pi over 180. In the calculator, I'm going to type 73. This is prime, so I think this is the final. So 73 fraction 180. If there's a fraction bar, if there's an ABC button like that on your calculator, that's what you would do. And then enter. Yeah, 73 is prime. So this measurement is 73 pi 180. Oops, whoa, not degrees. Because this is degrees divided by degrees, the degree symbol cancels. So this thing right here is the measure. So we could say 73 pi 100 over 180. All right. So remember they told us that this is the diameter. The whole thing, QS, is the diameter. So we know that this angle right there, if the arc says it's 90 degrees, well, if this is the diameter, 180, and this is 90, remember supplementary angles, then this has to be 90 degrees. So we have to find the measure of QPR. So 90 degrees times pi over 180. So in your calculator, do 90 fraction 180, or just 9 goes into 18 twice, so that just cancels. So this right here is pi half. Oh, it's asking for the angle. So boom, 90 degrees, 90 degree angle right there. So the measure of angle QPR is 90 degrees. All right. So we're going to use this same information. We have assumed that the lines which appear to be diameters. So this is a diameter right here. So we know this entire thing is equal to 180 degrees. So, and then 180 degrees times pi over 180 degrees, that entire arc is pi. But we have to find the values for x, so we're going to go ahead and use degrees. So we just say that negative 15x plus 5 plus 85, these are all in degrees, is equal to 180 degrees. So 85 and 5 is 90, so we can subtract 90 from both sides. That cancels both of those things. So now we have negative 15x, and the x is in degrees, is equal to 90. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 15. And we get x is a value of negative 6. And then you have to do the check. So negative 15 times 6, times negative 6. How to watch me. In degrees, plus 5. Well, that's negative 90, or positive 90 plus 5. That would be 95 degrees. And does 85 degrees plus 95 degrees equal 180? Because this big arc right here is a semicircle, which those two added together should equal 180 degrees. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to number 9. Okay, so for this one right here, again, so each of those radii are the same. So we are told, here's this angle right here. Here's this angle. So we're not given any of the arcs. We're only given the angles. Well, we know that a circle, an entire circle, is 360 degrees. All of those angles add up to 360. Okay, so we can just set all of these. Well, this x plus this x is 2x. This is negative 19x. Plus this 161 plus this 63. Let's do it that way. It's 12. 224. These are all in degrees. Is equal to 360 degrees. When you add the x's together, we get negative 17x in degrees. To get the x by itself, we're going to subtract 224, both sides. Let's see, we have 10 subtract 4 is 6, 5 subtract 2 is 3, 3 subtract 2 is 1. There we go. And then divide both sides by negative 17. So 136 divide negative 17. X is equal to negative 8. And then let's go ahead and do the check. So with the check, you just put negative 8 in for this x and in for that x. And then add those three things together. So in your calculator, 2 times negative 8 or parentheses negative 8 parentheses, subtract 19 times negative 8 plus 224, ta-da, equals 360. So the check works out. So x is equal to negative 8. Yep, and these instructions. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this video before I move on to the next one.